5 years, 3 expansions, 2 seasonal servers, several new game modes, era realms, and many hours spent within the World of Warcraft. What started off with the recreation of the original World of Warcraft experience and setting back everyone to a humble level 1 character has evolved over time into so many different things. And just recently, on the 27th of August 2024, we did mark that 5-year anniversary of Classic World of Warcraft. Classic was the culmination of an unstoppable series of events leading to the re-release of one of the longest standing and successful MMO stories of all time, and it had been a very long time in the making. Of course, people have been dabbling with creating their own environments with which to play World of Warcraft for many a year. Indeed, I don't think there is at least another mmorpg out there which comes close to the dedication WoW players have when it comes to this game. But we all remember that moment at BlizzCon 2013 when a fan asked directly to JL and Brack, "Will you ever do legacy servers?" It really felt like the start of something different, because the answer given by the then production director would end up being a quote that would go down in not only Blizzard's history, but gaming's as a whole. A cautionary tale of ignoring your player base, telling them you know what's best, and that they just don't get it. Yet that desire to go back to the original formats kept on growing, and 2016 saw the next big step towards classic servers being made a reality. It was called Nostalrius, and it was the most successful private server project to have existed for World of Warcraft, attracting thousands of players daily to a version of the game that Blizzard themselves seemed all too unwilling to invest in. Yet amidst this project's huge popularity, eventually Blizzard caught sight of them and had cause to take action. They ended up issuing a cease and desist order for the project, forcing them to essentially close or face further legal action. On the 10th of April 2016, Nostalrius would wind down their servers and close their doors for the final time, ending an important chapter in vanilla World of Warcraft's history, but igniting the spark for something so much bigger. This closure drew widespread attention from across the internet. Gaming media sites started creating posts about this and sharing them. Tons of videos would crop up on YouTube, and across the internet, people knew that this had happened. In the wake of Nostalrius' closure, a petition was created, saying, "If we can't host vanilla servers, will you, Blizzard, finally take the step and do it?" Since 2013 and well before that, people had been asking for this, and it seemed as though finally the message was starting to get through. In the end, with just shy of 280,000 supporters on the petition, success was finally found, and the uproar for vanilla was deafening. And at BlizzCon 2017, the moment we'd all been waiting for finally happened. Blizzard were gonna be doing it. Classic World of Warcraft was going to be a reality. In that time leading up to the release, the hype only grew more and more as Blizzard did presentations at future BlizzCons, showing us the work they'd done so far and everything that went on in the background to get this thing working again. And there were even moments during the Classic WoW beta which showed us a Blizzard that we remembered from the past too, as they would enter the beta servers and spawn a bunch of bosses just to mess with players and see how the servers held up. And so 2 years after the announcement, on September 26, 2019, Classic World of Warcraft dropped worldwide to immediate and massive success. Millions of people from around the world, old players and new alike, hopped back into World of Warcraft to see where it began all of those years ago. The server queues were so enormous, people were waiting over 12 hours in some cases just to be able to log back in and carry on their journey. Every single zone was packed, the economy was just getting established, and it truly was a magical and absolutely unrepeatable moment in World of Warcraft's history. And for that, it really did capture some of the essence that World of Warcraft had back in the day. You never stop to think it won't be this good again when all you're doing is having a good time. You're just there in the moment, and it's amazing. And outside of World of Warcraft, about 6 months or so after launch, COVID started to bring in global lockdowns worldwide, where people literally could not leave their house else, even if they wanted to. It really was the perfect storm of events, in-game and out, that led to Classic being an absolutely massive success for Blizzard. And whether you ended up agreeing with Brack in time and his statement, you can't deny just how well Blizzard did off finally re-releasing this game, with us knowing that Classic was the cause of the biggest quarterly increase in subscribers World of Warcraft has ever seen. And I don't think they're going to beat that, by the way. And as Classic progressed through the patches and onwards, we saw many new stories come out of this game. The new famous guilds that would clear raids in the space of an hour, dramas surrounding the rank 14 grind and truly how brutal it was, the effort people went to secure world buffs for a raid and a full set of consumables. This was before we had the Chronoboon Displacer, of course. The sheer insanity of opening AQ40 with its faction collusion and literal millions of items that needed to be collected. Classic definitely had its highs and its lows, but it got people playing the game and engaging with others in a way that other versions of World of Warcraft just don't. And that mix from the player base of enthusiasm to really see the game through, as well as, you know, not being able to go outside, really made Classic World of Warcraft into a special time. And again, something that won't be repeated anywhere near that scale. Even if there were a fresh server announced tomorrow, or let's say one soon after, so people could hype themselves up for a bit, would you want to play and replay the exact same experience as you did it back in Classic? Would you do 1 to 60 again on one time's experience? Would you pick your favorite class again now you know how the meta of the game goes? Would you farm for hours a week for consumables and pick up all your world buffs? Would you undertake the ranking journey again? Some would, many wouldn't. But inevitably, time moved on with Classic, and a TBC survey and forum posts about the possibility of an expansion began to pop up. MMOs are usually always driven by content that goes forwards, and with vanilla finally coming to a close, we had a decision to make. How do we go from Classic to TBC? The answer ended up being somewhat good, somewhat bad. It was Classic Era. Now, Classic Era was a snapshot of characters which was taken on a certain date and then were moved over to their own pristine servers where there would be no further changes. Other characters would automatically continue on to the Burning Crusade and beyond. Sounds pretty simple. The only issue was if you wanted your character on Classic Era and continue to Burning Crusade, you had to clone them, which initially came for the low price of $35, and this got people understandably really mad. I mean, usually Blizzard services in the shop all seem incredibly overpriced considering they're automated, but $35 to hang on to your character was just excessive, and there was a large amount of community backlash before Blizzard finally lowered it to $15 not long after. Still $15 for what the service is was an extortionate amount. And then way later Blizzard lowered the character clone cost down to $5, but there was pretty much no advertisement for that. Even I didn't realize that had happened for a long time. On top of the character clone drama, Blizzard decided to double down by also selling the Dark Portal Pass, which was basically a character boost, and there was a new mount and a toy, and just generally a package where you could spend some extra money to instantly get a character up to speed to head straight into Outland. It was clear that things were going to be changing with the Burning Crusade, and Blizzard were very much going to be making the most of it. But on June 21st, 2021, the Dark Portal reopened for the second time, and we headed off back into Hellfire Peninsula and Outland. I have to say the first week of Burning Crusade was definitely one of the best times I've had in World of Warcraft. Grinding to level cap, the gold farming, the dungeon spam, the achievements, enjoying all the class updates. It's a very front-loaded expansion content-wise, but man, it was good at the start. Early on into the Burning Crusade's release, we would have a bit of a surprise with a modified seasonal classic server, which dropped about 2 months after Tier 5, and this had a lot of changes, largely aimed at some of the more well-known issues that people had complained about throughout vanilla. This was World of Warcraft's first seasonal server called Season of Mastery. It did things such as disabling world buffs in raids, updating raid mechanics to make them a bit more challenging, making gathering nodes and crafting consumables a bit easier, no debuff limit on raid bosses, anti-boosting mechanics in dungeons, and there was even the Soul of Iron enabled too on these servers to prove that your character had never died, but more on that later. An interesting bunch of changes, and on a seasonal server too, which made a lot of sense to me. Ultimately though, this first season, despite implementing a number of well-received changes, didn't do all that well on the player count side of things. As many have pointed out with Season of Mastery, timing I think was the key issue here. People were still progressing tier 5, their guilds and communities were on Burning Crusade servers, and we'd just redone the whole vanilla experience some 6 months ago. It was just too soon. But TBC pressed on though through tier 5 into tier 6 and finally the Sunwell. And of course, if Blizzard were gonna do TBC, Wrath of the Lich King was an absolute certainty, right? I mean, how could it not be? Northrend, an epic music score, massive class updates with iconic abilities such as Lava Burst, Bladestorm, Starfall and so many more. A new hero class in the Death Knight, and of course the promised battle with the Lich King himself. But as we moved over to Wrath of the Lich King, Burning Crusade would see no error realms as vanilla had done, a trend which I feel will remain pretty consistent throughout Classic now. Wrath of the Lich King will be a return to form once again for Blizzard and World of Warcraft Classic, seeing subscriber numbers surge and loads of people coming back to check out this famous expansion. I think as a whole though, Wrath ended up with a pretty mixed reception. Some saw it as good as they had remembered it, whilst others started to notice a lot of inclusions into the game which really started to move things away from vanilla in a very significant manner. During Trial of the Grand Crusader and Wrath as well, we randomly had the WoW token dropped into the game. No warning, no foresight, just here you go, you can buy gold from us now, no problem. And it felt like for the token, a lot of people got over it the same day it was out more or less. The thing is, by the time you're in Wrath of the Lich King, the amount of gold you had was kind of just a luxury to spend. It didn't matter as much anymore. Only vanilla and the start of TBC, I would say, made gold feel as though it was a necessity. But there was another big addition made to the Classic franchise during Wrath of the Lich King, and that was for hardcore World of Warcraft servers. So hardcore WoW had been something that had been steadily growing on Classic era realms over a period of time. Back then people used to use a player-made add-on to try and adhere to the rules of the challenge, but all in all hardcore essentially has been just don't die, and that's the core of it. But Blizzard noticed the demand for hardcore servers and eventually decided to make them official. They released their own hardcore realms on the 23rd of August 2023 to a huge amount of success. This would have happened sometime between Trial of the Grand Crusader and ICC, and it was super hyped to see people play them though, and to share that fresh journey with so many other people, and of course see all the death clips which resulted from it. Something which started just from the community being turned into an official game mode really shows what Classic WoW can be when people come together and actually agree on something for once. Definitely a game mode I expect to see have its rises in popularity now and again, and one that I'm glad exists so people can go back to it whenever they want. But back in Wrath of the Lich King, eventually we reached that moment we'd all been waiting for. Ice, Crown, Citadel, and the fight versus the Lich King. Definitely one of the better raids in Classic so far, with a lot of good bosses, especially Arthas himself. But having reached that point and climbed to the peak of the mountain in terms of content, we had done everything now in the Classic trilogy. What was there left to do for Classic WoW now? Should we go back to Classic era? Quite a few people did, to be honest. It fit how they enjoyed the game better than the expansions. How about hardcore? I mean, it was still pretty fresh back then and you probably already played it. And at the end of the day, we all know what happens after Wrath of the Lich King, World of Warcraft's first properly controversial expansion, Cataclysm. Many doubted it would happen, but BlizzCon 2023 confirmed it, as well as something entirely unexpected. A second seasonal server for World of Warcraft, Season of Discovery, and the announcement for Cata got swept out of the way by additions that this new seasonal server would make, with it even being teased early on as some form of Classic Plus. This new seasonal server would focus on a number of things: different level brackets where experience will be halted, new content in terms of profession item, quests, hidden objectives and level up raids, a faster paced game where you could level up easily and get into the in-game content, and biggest of all, the discovery system as well as runes. Players will be able to go out into the world and engage with brand new stories to find runes which could be engraved onto their gear in order to unlock powerful brand new abilities, or in some cases brand new, others were copy-paste, but they were new for vanilla. Alongside this, class balance was to be a big focus on Season of Discovery. There will be no more meme specs, no going in 30 seconds, and no more damage meters consisting of one class. This was going to be a classic game with not so classic classes. And it got off to such a popular start with all the new content. It was super alt friendly, it was easy to get into the new BFD raid, people played loads of alts, there was a new PvP event in Ashenvale and so on. This was a glimpse for a lot of people into the potential that Classic has always held, albeit with a pretty extreme level of class changes. Now Season of Discovery is still ongoing of course, Phase 5 which is upcoming when I'm doing the video is Blackwing Lair and Zul'Gurub, and that will be coming soon. In fact personally I'm considering giving Sod another go after this phase dropped because I've always quite liked ZG, so I wouldn't mind checking that out. Blizzard have also hinted in more recent interviews that Season of Discovery is part of a larger picture and there will be more projects regarding Classic in the future. So whether we get another seasonal or a full-on fabled Classic Plus as an alternative timeline for World of Warcraft, who knows what they have cooking, but Season of Discovery is going along at the moment. It has a solid population and it hits a mix between classic and more updated class design, and it still has plenty of time after Phase 5 given that we have AQ40, Naxxramas, and maybe even other new content. And that's the part of Season of Discovery that's always exciting and interesting to follow. It's the first version of Classic where we truly don't know what everything will be in the future, and that's not something we've had the chance to experience before, given that all these games have just been remakes and re-releases. So I am watching along with Season of Discovery, hoping many people are enjoying it, and may hop back on myself soon enough. As for Cataclysm Classic, despite it being a step too far for many people, as expected it did end up launching on May 20th, 2024, sundering the world once again and bringing tons of new content into the game. I've definitely been one of those guys who's been more positive towards Cata, especially looking forwards towards the raiding content in this expansion, but right now it's kind of hard to keep up with that level of enthusiasm because of the, well, lack of anything that Cataclysm has received. Tier 11's a great raid tier, I will always say that, but right now it's kind of had its moment in the spotlight, and Phase 2 of Cata was 2 heroic dungeons which were irrelevant if you've raided in any capacity at all. Prior to Cataclysm so many things were said about it too, such as changes to the auction house to improve it, a graphical toggle update, different dungeon settings similar to the Titan Rune system from Wrath of the Lich King, class balancing when things are too weak or too overpowered, and we've just got nothing at all. I'm not expecting Blizzard to be able to deliver absolutely on every single thing they say, but we just haven't had anything. When Cata dropped, it got up to about 300,000 active raiders, which isn't all that bad considering this expansion's legacy. And I know people are going to say, well, it's a bad expansion, that's why they're not putting time into updates, but it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't update stuff, less people are going to play, and it just revolves around in the cycle. You probably noticed on my channel there's not been much Cataclysm content. I am still playing it by the way, it's just there's not really anything to talk about. And honestly, the approach for Cata from Blizzard has been a bit off-putting for the prospect of Mists of Pandaria for me too. If it's just send the expansion and then include major patches without addressing any potential issues, it feels as though it's a missed opportunity when, numbers-wise, at least early on in Cataclysm, things were going well. And really that brings us up to where we are today, some 5 years after this classic WoW journey began once again. I think for me the biggest thing that I still want to see from the future of this game is a proper standalone Classic Plus server with updates and some form of community involvement or input on major updates. But overall it's been an incredible journey seeing it all again, this time from a different point of view, from starting back at level 1 in Coldridge Valley to now thinking about fighting Ragnaros on heroic mode in Firelands soon. Though the next 5 years of Classic do seem a little more uncertain, however, and I feel as though Blizzard really have to innovate. If in 5 years so far we've done Vanilla, TBC, Wrath, and a bit under half of Kata, then the next 5 years would involve the second half of Kata, Mists of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, and Legion. And I've said a bunch of times I could see us getting to Legion, but by then there has to be something else. And perhaps with hints dropped in recent interviews and plenty of time to work on something new, maybe there just will be. I am still holding out for Classic Plus. I think that is the next big step which will really give Classic a future beyond re-releasing or replaying content, but only time will tell. And it's not just been 5 years of WoW Classic in-game, it's been 5 years for me of making content about this game, at least in a full-time capacity. I released my first video back on April 30th, 2019. It was a subject which seemed to me as though it was obvious to cover, but I couldn't find anyone who had done it, and that was comparing the success of old school RuneScape to World of Warcraft. And you know what? I said Classic wouldn't do as well as people won't want anything to change, so it will limit the game to some extent. And here we are playing our second WoW seasonal server and thinking about Classic Plus and something more permanent. It'll happen after SOD though, surely, right? Of course this video got pretty much no views because opinion pieces with 0 subscribers don't tend to be a good mix. But soon after that I started the Was It Any Good Though class series, and that's what really got me into YouTube. There's nothing like waking up one day and seeing your channel that gets maybe 10 views in a day is now getting 10,000 in a few hours. It's pretty surreal. And to tie into that, the contract to the job I was working ended literally a few days before the release of Classic. So I just went all in on YouTube to see if it would work, and well, I'm fortunate enough where I'm still able to do this even though the landscape of Classic has changed so much. So I guess what I want to say is, thank you for watching, whether you found the channel and subscribed yesterday or years ago towards the start of Classic. For the future, I see myself making World of Warcraft related content here. I may do some other MMO stuff now and again, you never know what's going to come out. There was the Riot MMO project, but that was shelved sometime last year, and I'm not expecting anything big to be happening in that space for a very long time. And of course there's Ashes of Creation, the MMO with an open project development cycle that everyone has an opinion about. I've definitely taken an interest to it, but again, it's going to be years before anything really happens there. I do want to get posting on my other channel again a bit too. Yeah, I do have another channel. I kind of made a few videos and then I got a bit busy with World of Warcraft related stuff and just wasn't able to keep up with it. It's League of Legends focused, and I always get a bit hyped with League towards when Worlds is on. But over there I'm interested in making history type videos for League, similar to what I've done with World of Warcraft for the most part, and I am happy with what I posted there so far. I just kind of need to do more of it. And this wouldn't be me trying to leave this channel or go on that one full time, it would be me doing both at the same time, and at the end of the day there's a bit less happening on the Classic side of things at the moment, so maybe I can find some more free time and come up with some good ideas for that. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. But that's about it. 5 years of Classic, 5 years of YouTube. Here's to 5 more. So truly, thank you all so much for watching over the years and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.